Welcome back to the Lucky Orange Show. I'm your host, Sean McCarthy, and today's episode is all about fulfillment strategy. Now it's August, and Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and the holiday shopping season are coming down the tracks like a freight train. So you're buttoning up your campaigns and your products, and you're working with your partners to say, how can we make this the best holiday shopping season ever for our brand? So today, I'm talking with Francesca DeCastris, the Senior Partner Manager over at Shipbob. In this conversation, we talked about ways to make your fulfillment strategy more resilient to those unexpected disruptions. We discussed inventory management, and we even hit on the things that Shipbob is doing to figure out ways to make shipping and fulfillment a more sustainable practice. So if you're ready, let's go chat with Francesca from Shipbob. Fulfillment efforts, logistics, this whole world that we are going to be talking about is such a beast. And when people look at their own efforts, what they're doing, if they've taken a few steps forward and they're growing a little bit, what can they look at to say, KPIs or otherwise, there is room for improvement in our fulfillment efforts?
Yeah, I think there's two different types of customers when we're thinking about Shipbob, and this is just because we've expanded our services to service other people. So there's someone that's completely outsourcing their fulfillment to a fulfillment partner. So they're giving the whole control, all the inventory to a fulfillment partner to do everything. And then Shipbob has actually moved to helping brands that have their own warehouse and helping them optimize their warehouse as well as plug into our fulfillment network. So I'd say that's in-house fulfillment. And so those are two different people. So I'm going to say probably I'll touch on like if they differ because they're similar, but again, they face different challenges because one's outsourcing and one owns and operates their own warehouse.
Sure.
And this is the main part of their business too. They should always be thinking about efficiencies, a growth mentality. Who you're working with might not be your fulfillment partner forever. Some people like keeping it that way, but there's always room for improvement as well as advancements in omni-channel, as well as where to sell that maybe their fulfillment partner can't support. So I'd say for outsourced fulfillment, really thinking about like, what do they want to do in the next 6 to 24 months? And can their partner help them get there? And that's like a growth mentality question I always ask brands because people are very standoffish about fulfillment. It's a big part of their business, whether they put time into it in their own warehouse, setting up a warehouse management system, or they have different systems that connect and they have a team, or if it's outsourced and they just chose a partner. A lot of people are like reluctant to talk to new solutions. And I want to break that barrier just because I think that not one fulfillment partner is the best fit for everybody, especially as brands continue to scale. And every brand's different. It's very subjective. Like, yes, we have ideal customer profiles for customers working with Shipbob, but really it's all over the place. And I think that they should be thinking about like, can my fulfillment partner help me get to where I want to be with logistics? Because it's such a big part of the business. So I think for outsourced fulfillment, average fulfillment cost, a lot that this is one that people focus on a lot. But I want to say also, just because a fulfillment partner is 40 cents higher or whatever the number is, doesn't mean that they should just rule it out as not a good solution. Maybe at the beginning of their process of scaling their brand, the landed cost of their product and how much it takes to get everything over, it doesn't make sense to use that fulfillment partner, but always try to negotiate because there's long-term value in working with a partner like that sometimes because either they have a big network or a tech-enabled solution or integrations with a lot of different partners. But average fulfillment cost is something over a long term they should look at of how is my fulfillment partner help me reduce this or optimize this. And that's really with using multiple facilities as you scale. We have brands using 6 facilities in the US, really optimizing reducing the speed to the customer, offering 2-day shipping to every customer, and then reducing their costs. And so average fulfillment cost is probably the main thing people look at, as well as storage costs, but then also average days to fulfill. So if your fulfillment partner is not fulfilling or within like 24 to 48 hours, that's kind of a concern. Things happen, but again, it's about consistency. And just being with a partner that can push orders out as fast as possible. Because once you give it to the carrier, it's kind of in their hands. You never know what's going to happen. So at least just having control on like fulfillment and just getting the order ready for the carrier as soon as possible. So you said average cost, fulfillment cost, average days to fulfill, average days in transit as well. They can look at different carriers they're using. 3PLs mostly use a range of carriers. So we've really moved over to having regional carriers as well as like the main carriers. And just because during the pandemic, some of the carriers weren't picking up on time, there was an influx for the post office. of both brands as well as consumers shipping stuff to people, and just having reliability with other carriers, maybe to reduce the average time to deliver to the customer. And then percent of orders fulfilled on time, that's really important as well. Again, things happen in logistics. If it's a couple hundred orders and you ship 1,000 orders a month, like, yes, bring it up to the fulfillment partner, but it's maybe not the end of the world and something that you can work on with them. And really think about it like as a partnership. Like, we don't think of ourselves as a vendor, like we think of ourselves as a partner, consulting them on what works as well as what we can do to solve an issue or improve things. And then the last thing is, well, I guess, yeah, the last thing, current average shipping zone. So
Hmm.
this is also when you add more fulfillment centers, just reducing the zone shipping, it's going to reduce costs as well as how much time it takes to get to the customer. Um, and yeah, it's just an ideal distribution with all those factors kind of lead into like an ideal distribution. And so having a partner that is tech enabled where everything's in real time, and I'm talking about like the warehouse management system, gives you information about what is going on in the fulfillment center because you're not actually there to see what's going on, and having that info in real time as well as analytics to improve fulfillment. So it's not just, hey, this is what it is. Like, we can give all that data of like how much everything costs, this is the average transit time, but then there's a section in our warehouse management system that's like, hey, let's move inventory to these facilities. This is how many units of each SKU we should. And then this is what it's going to change the cost as well as transit time. So it's having a partner that can help look at that stuff, because if not, like, you're going to be running spreadsheets all the time. And that's not really an efficient way to do things. So that's for outsource. And then in-house is a little bit different. Again, having a warehouse management system, because a lot of people are using order management systems and OMS and separate IMS inventory management systems, or they built something in house, or they're using a very old solution. Like, there's a lot of solutions on the market. And again, not one is going to be the best for every brand. But again, finding someone that can help you run that data and everything that's connected can make it way easier to make smarter decisions as you're moving forward. And so for in house, and I'll call it in house fulfillment slash hybrid, because the brands that are using our warehouse management system in their warehouse have the opportunity to use our other Shipbob facilities around the world. And so we do have customers like this, that you can go on our website. There's case studies about brands using in their warehouse, but then expanding with us internationally. So I'll call it in-house hybrid. And so they're looking at how many orders have been delivered, average fulfillment costs, average days to fulfill, average days in transit. But then extra on top of that is, how much does it cost to add another location? How much does it cost to build an integration into something? Like, maybe people want to be into an ERP like NetSuite, and to build that on your own or ask whoever you're working with to build into it might take time. And those are things you should take into account. And then, are you manually managing inventory and orders? And then, are they disconnected? So there's a lot of different topics. And again, everybody's going to have different pain points depending on if they fulfill in house, outsource, and what type of product they have. But those are the things to think about when looking at your fulfillment solution and just looking towards the future of, how can I improve this if there's even room for improvement?
It totally makes sense that Shipbob, to be successful in your space, has to be flexible as a partner and meet people where they are and offer these different options. So it makes sense that you've evolved to a space where you can meet people in these different areas. And I think you mentioned something that is really interesting, that Shipbob essentially kind of stands on the side of the business and says, we know there's these other factors out there. These shipping times are really limited by some other factors, by the carriers doing their job, by, a pandemic happening, all these things that can happen, all the costs that can change, and impact ultimately that package getting to that person. It's not wholly in Shipbob's control. It's not wholly in the business's control. And so
Yeah.
that partnership play there, where you are on their side and you're helping them. I'm curious, as these things and these kind of meta factors happen with carrier issues and whatever the other factors might be that can impact the outcome of a package getting to something. How does the team at Shipbob sort of stay on top of these things and stay out front of the changes that are happening? And part of that too would be consumer expectations of shipping speed and shipping cost and things of that nature. How do you guys view that, as like the environment of shipping a package in general just continues to evolve?
I think your customers are always going to expect more from you. And that's kind of what we've done, is just meet our customers at the level that they want. And just know that if we're dealing with this, everybody else is, and we just need to address it because people can go to a lot of different fulfillment partners and maybe get a solution solved. But if we can look at what's going on and address it and try to optimize, making it easier for them to run their business, maybe in other parts that touch the fulfillment aspect, that builds trust. And then we also communicate stuff through our warehouse management system. So in real time, like we can
Mm.
set alerts. Hey, there's a storm in this area and like shipments are delayed or we had to shut things down. So it's always about communication on the platform, communication via email if things are going to change. But then also, I guess we've hired a lot of people that have experience in fulfillment at a bigger scale that have that experience to bring it to us of like, hey, this is how we go to the next level to make sure that we're avoiding these issues. And so we've been really thinking about how can we control the movement of packages and have more control over that so we can reduce the cost as well as we can make sure that we're handing them off to carriers easier or we can make it easier for carriers to pick up instead of picking up at 6 different facilities in one region. And so I think it's just continuation of listening to our customers, hearing their feedback and trying to find a solution and not being okay with what we've built. This year, we're really focusing on customer experience and getting the feedback for the programs and services that we built out. So we've done a lot of stuff with globalization. Section 321 is something that's new. DDP shipping and then having international facilities. And it's like, okay, doubling down on that experience and making sure that that experience is great, as well as other services that we have. And I don't know if I answered your question, but there's a lot of factors that go into it. It's just getting that feedback from the customer and just making sure they're heard and communicating back to them that like this is a concern and we're going to work on it. But again, you're not going to be able to service everybody. You're just going to figure out like for the bigger group, like how can we optimize these things and reduce the risk? Because like you said, there's so many things that are out of our control that we can't control. And a lot of times it does affect people going live at a later date or
Mhm.
things get damaged or things get lost. And all we can do is just prepare for the future. And I think that's what we've done out of the pandemic is we've built a lot of services. I would say they're like white label, gray label with other partners that are experts in something that is related to our business, but we don't do that touches our business. And so, for example, we have Freight Bob. If you know, a lot of our services have Bob at the end. But Freight Bob came from the pandemic. Everyone couldn't get inventory into the LA port. It was a nightmare. We wanted to get inventory in. We actually worked with a partner to have a boat coming from China that was only for Shipbob customers, and it was going to the Long Beach port, which is
Hmm.
less busy. It's also smaller and more shallow. So we had a faster boat and we had a smaller boat, but they were all Shipbob customers. And we were able to provide, I think it was biweekly, what did I just say, ships. And
Mm.
then also we didn't have to deconsolidate. So we're thinking about these things of like what is slowing down the process as our merchant coming in as just one merchant by themselves in a sea of a bunch of different people moving inventory across the world and across the country, more consolidating them and then helping them with a service that we've handpicked, as well as like the pricing is guaranteed as well as static. And we were just able to take a lot of the friction of getting stuff in out of the way and then improve the speed of them getting their inventory in. And so I think that's just the mentality that we have is like things are going to happen, but all we can do is just kind of course correct and try to find a solution that in the future we know this will continue to help these brands optimize their full supply chain.
Yeah.
And you don't know when things are going to happen. Like you can't predict that a major postal carrier is not going to pick up during Black Friday on the pandemic and you have to expedite everybody's orders so customers get it on time. It's just course correcting and then planning for the future.
Yeah. I think the communication part there is massive because really what you're seeking to do, of course, you can differentiate as a partner by having great features and the pricing and all that. But being a great partner, especially in your space, feels like the communication is necessary. You want people to enjoy as much as much as somebody could enjoy a 3PL and a logistics partner and shipping partner. You want them to enjoy using ShipBob and interacting with it and feeling like it's helping them grow. And that communication can do wonders for that. We think about that a lot. We've been thinking about that a lot recently at Lucky Orange is how do we just become people's favorite tool to use on their website? Of course, we want our features to be killer. We want our pricing to be affordable and make sense within the market. But what can we do educationally or communication wise to just say, help them use the tools, help them get value out of the tools, and help them recognize when change happens within the platform, why it's happening, and that stuff. And you mentioned we can't necessarily predict when things are going to happen, but stuff does happen. And so when somebody looks at their fulfillment strategy, how can people better prepare for maybe these unexpected disruptions that happen? Obviously, bringing on a really solid partner like Shipbob makes a lot of sense to help them do that. But what else can they do maybe to shore up their operations in advance of something unexpected happening?
It's hard because every brand's very different. I think we're just
Yeah.
having partners, especially that are attached to your supply chain, that communicate with you firstly, as well as are willing to help problem solve with you, and you've built a really great relationship with. And that's kind of after the fact, and that's what we touched on is just having that human connection. I would say having visibility into everything in real time is very helpful as well because you can kind of mitigate issues fast. Again, like we don't know unless like something's happened and like we're seeing it if a customer hasn't reached out to us. So having the data in front of you as well as being in the know about what's going on and staying on top of this stuff is what's going to make it easier to resolve it faster. Like we've had people that are just like not paying attention to their warehouse management system and like stuff's going wrong. They're like, oh no, I have all these orders and exception. It's like you should have reached out to us a week ago so we could have done this. But I think it's the visibility of like what's going on in your fulfillment center in real time. Um, but there's not really anything you can do except just prepare and just prepare early.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about people expanding as well as getting inventory in of like working with the manufacturer, making sure you're getting your inventory in as soon as possible. If you're looking for another 3PL, looking as soon as possible and like actually talking to people and getting quotes and going through the process. And I know that this is probably going to air right before Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and we can turn around pretty fast and get people onboarded. It's just easier when you have more time. And so I think it's just preparing and just preparing ahead of time and having that stuff done in advance so it doesn't feel like a rush. Because a lot of times brands are like, I want to launch in the UK in like the next 6 months. And it's like, great, like that is actually a great timeline. But then there's also added to you have to get your tax compliance in order. You have to import the inventory. Sometimes things happen. So I think time is just really on everyone's side. And sometimes people don't have that leisure. Like I've talked to brands recently that like keep selling out and like they have an inventory issue and manufacturing issue. And like sometimes that's stuff that you can't foresee, but if you can plan ahead, it helps a little bit and then communicate that to your customers. And so I don't really have a great answer for this
No,
just
I
because
think it's
I
yeah.
think we're trying to figure it out as well because a lot of people put the onus on us like this is our fault, but really at the end of the day it's just working with your vendors that are really your partners, communicating and just planning ahead as far as you can, and utilizing your partners as well to introduce you to people that could help step in. Like we have all the time where brands that have been working with us are like, hey, we need help with like reworking these returns or doing X, Y, and Z. And so like they want us to just give them an answer to who's really good because it saves them a lot of time and stress to have to find that. So I think it's working with people that connect you with people that can solve problems when you need it. Cause a lot of times like you're just not going to foresee this stuff happening, even if you do plan a lot in advance.
Yeah. Yeah. And definitely visibility into the metrics. If you are experienced with your business, you might be able to see trends coming. You might be able to see, hey, we've got a bottleneck here, or we're having inventory issues that might rear their ugly head. Like we're skating on thin ice with, our margins here, whatever it might be. That if you can have proper visibility into your system and to your point, you're paying attention to it, then you might be able to see disruption coming aside from like stuff that's out of your control, the shipping carriers or whatever it might be that just happens. I'm curious if you could dive into inventory management a little bit more. If there's anything there that, you'd recommend for people preparing for disruptions or otherwise, but just any sort of tips or anything on the inventory management side of things that you see from the ship op side of things that you say this makes people successful, or on the flip side, here's where people can go wrong on that side of things.
Again, it's visibility into how much inventory you have as well as those numbers and like you're saying trends. And we have we have alerts for that, like, hey, you need to reorder this inventory. So I
Hmm.
think that's what's really helped is just keeping people in the know of like, hey, you should reorder and sending an alert to them. I also think that a lot of times you're just going to have to receive inventory, and like if it's your first time launching your brand, just see how things work. But a lot of times too with the inventory management, like I'll say, like receiving the inventory, like you can do a lot with your manufacturer that will reduce costs as well as time to get stuff done. And so if you can find a manufacturer, because a lot of people are like, I need a co-packer, I need someone to build, like put my supplements together. It's like if you could find someone to do all those things in one, it's going to make it easier for you, reduce costs and time, and then we're going to be able to receive it and just be able to ship it out versus having to do a special project. But then also taking accountability of, I guess, communicating with your fulfillment partner on receiving the inventory. Like there's instructions on how to do a warehouse receiving order for Shipbob. And people sometimes don't know how to do it. So like asking for help or taking accountability to say, I messed this up and like I need help, because a lot of times it might happen one or two times, but if we can course correct as well as educate on how to do this, like we're reducing a lot of friction. And so that's where I see people not succeeding, is not taking ownership of us receiving the inventory in the right way. And I'm saying like people having like, this is real leather versus fake leather, and so many SKUs of apparel that are mixed together. Like there's very specific rules that we give people that is scalable. So we can scale people to multiple facilities, but also we can receive the inventory and then stow it away with ease, especially if people have a couple hundred SKUs. So I think there's a lot of things people can do on the front end to prepare themselves before we receive the inventory. And we've even taken this into our own hands of, hey, instead of every individual facility receiving inventory and then like having to fix the issues, we've actually built out hubs. They're in every region. We have facilities and they're doing the main receiving, and then we're course correcting the inventory and then sending it out to all the different facilities it needs to go. So we're taking more control on that because we've seen it be an issue a lot of times for brands that are coming over from self-fulfilling, or just, I don't know, they've worked with a 3PL that's maybe a mom and pop shop that has more control. They can call them, they can go in the facility. I'm not saying you can't call us or go in the facility, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
definitely a little bit different of a relationship. And there's trade-offs for both and pros and cons to both. But a lot of people moving over just don't understand that we're at a big scale and we've got thousands of customers coming in. And we need to also make sure that we can receive stuff and keep on schedule. And so I think with inventory, it really is just like giving it to your fulfillment partner ready to go, so there's no issues, as well as can you foresee things happening with your inventory that's an issue. And I'm thinking about like breakage as well as yeah, just breakage and stuff like that. So also future proofing of, is this going to be a problem later down the road? Like maybe packages haven't broken or inventory hasn't been broken and delivering to the fulfillment center, but is this something I can foresee happening in the future where maybe I change my packaging? It's just thinking about those things, and just really preparing yourself, because really once you give it to your fulfillment partner, people want to go live and keep shipping. That's the whole goal. And people have Amazon SLAs they need to keep up with, not really Shopify SLAs, but especially if they're selling on marketplaces, they have SLAs they need to keep in line with. So it's really just making sure your inventory is ready to rock and roll, and then utilizing your partner to find services to help with that if you can't do that on your own.
I want to shift gears slightly into your corner of Shipbob, which is a lot of the partnerships and things of that nature. My understanding is that Shipbob powers the fulfillment for some other 3PLs, among other things. Tell me about how that works and kind of what that means for Shipbob as you continue to evolve.
Yeah, I think we looked at the addressable market and there's a lot of runway, especially with the pandemic. So many people opened up different brands. But we also looked at where are we not winning deals, as well as where is the opportunity for us to scale and help people. So I talked about earlier helping brands that have their own warehouse manage or have their own warehouse using our warehouse management system. And that was the first step of, hey, like here's a group of people we didn't usually serve, but there's so much value here in our technology as well as the processes um, that we've built to be able to train people out on that, as well as let them plug into our network. And so it's kind of evolved into now our warehouse management system can run other 3PLs as well as marketplaces and just other, I guess, businesses that need fulfillment. It doesn't need to be in that box. I think we're willing to talk to anybody because we can kind of make it work. But we have a 3PL live that's using our warehouse management system and using our network if they want to plug into our network, but really just teaching them this is how we've done things, as well as telling them how to rack stuff in the fulfillment center, how to use a technology that we've used, how to make things scalable. And that's what we've done with the brands that have their own warehouse. So I think it's exciting because it means that there's potential for us to work with more people, not just staying in the box of e-commerce brands and then being able to service other people's brands. And it's really, you're really proud because we built this software in-house. This is something we own and operate. This is something we continue to innovate on when customers have questions or want up like feature updates. And not a lot of 3PLs can say that. Some 3PLs use multiple different warehouse management systems and multiple different 3PLs. Some people don't own and operate their warehouse management system. I think it's just a proud moment to know that we built something that's had such an effect on our business as well as brands in-house that now we brought it to other people like, hey, we've helped people scale X, Y, and Z, and we're able to help you do that. And I think it just opens it up for us to partner more with people. I don't like, we don't want to compete. Like, yes, we're like frenemies with a lot of people. There's a lot of stuff that like we compete in space. And I think we've just coming together of like, hey, it's a natural progression of us to work together, your customers to come to us, or like you're looking for a solution. And it just opens up the opportunity to work with people and just keep providing great fulfillment services for customers around the world that probably don't know Shipbob is fulfilling their orders, or has a hand in the management of their orders or the system, or we help that 3PL re-systemize their warehouse to push out orders better. And like, I doubt their customers know that, but they're just going to have a great customer experience. So it's really exciting because I don't think anybody is doing what we're doing. Even on the warehouse management side, nobody is doing that. No one's doing a hybrid solution. Like there's competitors that have their own warehouse management system, but nobody's doing this hybrid solution. I think we're paving the way of working with people and meeting people where they are and just being open to new opportunities and new challenges and seeing if it works. And that's why if anyone listens to this, that's like, oh, I potentially need a fulfillment solution, like talk to us, because I think we're always willing to have the conversation and see if it works, because e-commerce has been built in the last 10 years. Like no one knew what they were doing then. Like no one had these advancements. Like no one had a network like what we have now. And I think we're just trailblazing in this area and we're really focusing on what we're good at and what we know. And that's why we've been really successful. We're not really yes, we're concerned with our competitors, but we're just really focusing on what we're good at and how we can provide value to other people in the market that don't know how to fulfill. Like a lot of people managing their own warehouses don't have logistics expertise, where we have people that have come from Amazon in the past, people that have come from Wayfair and like other complicated fulfillment processes where we can give them that expertise as well as technology that we built over the last 10 years. So it's really exciting because when I go to conferences, it's like I can talk to anybody now because I think there's opportunity for us to help people scale and at least just bring them into our ecosystem of connecting them with partners like Lucky Orange and other service providers that we work with. So it's more exciting because then you can talk to like these big marketplaces you work with and be like, hey, is there potential here? And like there could possibly be.
Yeah. Yeah. In our space, there's this phrase that's going around as for SaaS as opposed to software as a service. It's software with a service. And so we recognize that, of course, people coming to us may not all be website optimization experts. What can we do to partner with them and help them better understand how to use our tools? I think the same thing definitely applies with logistics. Even if you've been in business for several years, you might be heads down on the product side, the creative side, whatever it might be, but you're also responsible for managing this. Of course, when it scales to get bigger, you probably need someone in the team who becomes that expert. But that makes a lot of sense for Shipbob to be present in all these situations. So if I'm sitting here listening and say, okay, Francesca, you've sold me, I want to talk to Shipbob. What can people do? You mentioned giving enough time for a transition between partners. What else can people do to maybe make that transition between partners, fulfillment partners, simpler and faster for them, especially like you mentioned, as we approach the holiday shopping season coming up here before too long?
Yeah, I would say do things as early as possible, which again, August is not the earliest, but it's still doable because a lot of people have different cutoff dates for Black Friday and Christmas. You just have to find someone that's willing to work with your schedule. But I think having your inventory ready to go or available, as well as looking at other solutions and looking at all the different solutions. A lot of people are hesitant to get on a phone call with people. They just want pricing up front. And I think that's really wrong because someone's going to be able to consult you on next steps and connect you with potential service providers for other things that maybe you didn't think about in the process. So I think looking at all solutions, getting on a call with people, and then just having your manufacturing and whatever else you want. Like maybe there's custom packaging or you need things kitted for the holidays, like having that kind of pre-planned. But really, it's just time as well as utilizing partners that can introduce you to their top fulfillment partners. And then, too, if they have a fulfillment partner, like you're going to get white glove service, you're probably going to get better pricing or an incentive, and you're going to get connected with a team immediately. And you can go to people's websites as well. But I think it's always good to connect with the resources you have and ask around because word of mouth is very powerful, but also like looking at all those different solutions. So I think for being fast, thinking about like it'll be August going into October, just looking at solutions, getting on a call, and then just upfront saying like this is my timeline, like we can make it work. And if a fulfillment partner can't make it work, then either you don't work with them or you pick somebody else. Like
Yeah.
you can always switch fulfillment partners too in the future. But I think just giving enough time and having as many things prepared and being realistic about things as well. Like
Mhm.
yeah, and then utilizing their partners again, like better rates or hey, do they have managed freight like we do? Like we do domestic moves all the time. And I didn't even touch on like I talked about the hubs, but like also we are also moving people's inventory for them and making the decisions across the network and just looking for partners that can kind of take that I guess like stress as well as complexity out of the way. So like maybe you can just plug and play really easily and faster than you would have done with another partner. So there's a lot of things you can do, but again, it's always time is always the best friend because there's going to be things that come up that you just don't expect to come up or things get delayed even when like we're having someone go live like they have someone with them for the first 30 days just making sure things are good and making sure things when they launch are good and again things can be tricky at the beginning or something might happen or maybe an integration wasn't integrated correctly or we need to do x y and z so really time is on your side but communicating just getting back to your fulfillment partners or options as soon as possible and just communicating your timeline to them because I think people are really willing before Black Friday to get people launched. It's just a lot of times they don't have the things prepared. And then it ends up being like, we're going to do this in Q1 and Q2, which is totally fine. You're just missing out on optimizing your fulfillment for the holidays, depending on what you're doing currently.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you heard it here first. Francesca says, "Get your shit together. The holidays are coming. If you are even considering switching partners, now is the time to act and get on a call." We'll touch on later how to find and connect with Shipbob, but I have one more question before we hit that one, which is as we now dive deeper into the back half of this year, what in your world has you most excited about in either Shipbob or otherwise? What has you most excited?
I would say industry wise is sustainability. And this is something that we are trying to focus on or just find improvements on because nobody knows what they're doing again with sustainability. And there's not any legislation as well as funding for people. Really, it's like either it's with your core mission or you're doing it and adding costs to prioritizing sustainability. But there's a lot of cool things with like re-commerce or reworking stuff or buy before you buy, and it's like a refurbished electronic product. So there's a lot of things that we're trying to connect with these partners to offer other solutions. We even have donation partners as well. Instead of throwing out inventory, one of our donation partners will pick up and put it with different nonprofit groups locally to that fulfillment center. So I'm really excited about sustainability because I think that these companies are challenging us to think not just think about the front end of logistics, but like the re-commerce and reverse logistics, which we do focus on. But I don't know, I talk to brands, even when people are very focused on apparel and B2B, it still seems like there's concerns with sustainability as well as like reworking of products. Like there's always room for improvement with returns. And we've seen this with e-commerce just blowing up and a lot of brands being apparel or accessories. Either brands just tell you to keep it and they don't want to ship it back because it's too costly, or they tell you to donate it. And so, or they're gonna accept it back and do their own refurbishment. Like I know like Lululemon and a lot of big like Patagonia has like sections on their website as
Mhm.
well as in store of like these are things that like we reworked and put back on the shelf and throw for a better price. Thinking about that at a large scale is kind of hard for smaller brands. So I'm excited because I think there's people that are focusing on this of like, hey, let's service the direct to consumer brands that people are shopping on. Like really, when you don't have a store, it makes returns way harder. It makes processing returns way harder. So it's just offering solutions. There's so many different ways for sustainability, but I've recently seen that pop up, and that's what I'm excited about in the industry. And then with Shipbob, I just got back from our customer conference, and we had just launched that with our hubs. We're going to be focusing on moving inventory more,
Hmm.
and moving inventory maybe, or moving shipments to another hub, reducing zones. So there's a lot of things that we're doing to optimize the supply chain for the brands to make sure that, I don't know, it's fast, it's efficient, and we're just looking at the future of like how can we make this easier, as well as how we can we reduce costs for our customers and really just provide, I don't know, a more efficient fulfillment solution. Even though efficiency is like the main thing for ShipBob, like we're always trying to improve, and I think we're always challenging ourselves of as we take on these bigger customers, because like we started with emerging brands, like from humble beginnings. We were
Hmm.
just talking about it. The team had their own e-commerce brand. They were going to the post office. They were running into similar people, same people all the time. Let me fulfill your orders. And it kind of transcended from an apartment in Chicago to this. And so we started with small brands, but as we continue to go up market, the complexity of supply chain gets harder. And I think we want to make that easier so we can win more customers, as well as give a better partnership to the customers we have. And so that's what I'm really focused on is what other parts of the supply chain do we touch, or how could we make this more efficient for both our operations teams, the carriers, as well as the brand. So I won't talk too much about details because I know that they're trying to figure that out right now and they're currently working on that. But there's a lot of focus on customer experience and doubling down on that. And I think that's what I'm really excited about, especially meeting our customers at the conference last week. A lot of them love Shipbob. They love to be connected, but they also love how serious we take scaling. And also, we're just not happy with the status quo or what we did. Like, we're always setting new goals for ourselves every year to focus on something, whether it's expanding a service or just improving efficiencies. And I think that's what I'm most proud of we've gone through a lot. Like every fulfillment partner messes up at one time. Like there's human error. There's a lot of hands, a lot of it's going miles away from you, coming from miles away from you, and going to a customer that are miles away from you. There's a lot of things that can happen, but we've always taken it head on and taken accountability. Even if maybe the customer could have given more, we're always taking accountability and looking at like how can we reduce this happening in the future and provide a good customer experience, but also giving the opportunity for our customers to grow.
Yeah. I mean, I know personally that's something that I look for in great partners with for Lucky Orange and elsewhere is just you can tell that they are evolving and that they're pushing to improve. And even if you're the number one solution, like what can you do to make it better for the customers, and not just focus on your own margins and profitability. So it's a worthy cause, and as is sustainability, that's super exciting and much needed, at least exploration to figure out how we can better improve that across the board. So as we kind of wrap up here, where can people connect with Shipbob? We talked about getting on top of that now. Where can people go to do that? And then also, where can people find you and connect with you online?
Yeah. So at the bottom under these videos, there will be a link that offers for everyone listening to this to, if you want to meet with us, you fill out a couple of questions and then the quote form goes to me. We're offering Lucky Orange listeners as well as customers $1,000 in free shipping credits by going through this quote form. And that's just so I can make sure that I connect with you or my team connects with you directly. So we'll have a quote form that you can fill out that goes to us directly. You can catch us on LinkedIn. A lot of times, like we're posting about the different events we do, as well as webinars. And there's a lot of information to be had there. So if you go to our LinkedIn, the Shipbob LinkedIn, I think I'm on there a couple of times as well. If you want to connect with me, I'm under employees. But we have opportunities for you guys to listen on webinars that we're hosting, as well as maybe e-commerce events that we're doing in your area or around a conference. So I would say fill out the quote form if you want to connect with us. I will get you set up with one of our logistics specialists. You'll get the offer and they'll walk you through on a consultative call your total fulfillment needs. And that's why we want to get on a call. Like, we're just not expecting things to be black and white. They're not. And we also want to consult you on what works, because maybe what you had in mind isn't the best option. And we want to tell you what has scaled for other customers. So we'll get on a call with you, and then you'll be with our team. But also, if you go to our LinkedIn as well as our website, like, we have so many blog posts on topics as well as case studies. And then our website too, you can sign up for the webinars. I know we post them on LinkedIn, But I think it's really informational to be on a webinar with a bunch of different partners, as well as we have webinars coming up with customers and brands that you can hear their perspective. So I'd say those are the best places to start to really get to know Shipbob, but really just have a conversation with us. Even if you're not looking to come on board right now and it's like a next year thing, like it's always really good to have the conversation, just know and know if you need to go search out other solutions or not, or have a plan. Because we can also connect you with people, even if you're like, I don't need fulfillment right now, but maybe I want to be connected to one of your partners like Lucky Orange. Like, please fill out that quote form and I'll reach out to you and connect you with whoever. So I would say the quote form, our LinkedIn, and our website, because there's so many resources on there, are a good place to go. I'm not really on social media that much besides LinkedIn, so it's probably the best place to find me.
Okay, you're not going to be on Threads and TikTok. Well, Francesca, thank you so much for your time and your wisdom for sharing with us this morning. I really appreciate it. Super exciting time to be at Shipbob, and as we head in through the rest of the year, best of luck to you and the team and keeping up with everybody's fulfillment needs.
Thank you. We're excited for it. I'm excited to see how many packages we fulfill during peak. Honestly, I don't even remember the number last year. I just know millions. It's going to be millions again, but I don't know how big. But it'll be interesting to see how much we do this year in that time. And I think that's what we're really excited about this year.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, Francesca, thank you so much again for joining me today.
Thank you, Sean.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Lucky Orange Show. Before we go, if you haven't tried Lucky Orange yet, head over to www.luckyorange.com for a free 7-day trial of our leading conversion rate optimization toolkit. What's in that toolkit? Well, let's start with session recordings and heat maps. With session recordings, you can watch a full playback of an entire visitor journey on your website. Everywhere they click, scroll, move, everything they do in your site, a full playback. So you can see what's getting in the way of conversions and what is getting people over that finish line to convert. With dynamic heat maps, you can see the average visitor behavior on a page. So you can see clicks, moves, and scrolls. You can see how far down the page the average visitor is scrolling. And if something is below that line, that means that more than 50% of visitors are not seeing that. Lucky Orange also offers tools like live chat, announcements, and surveys so that you can communicate with your website visitors in real time. So again, if you have not tried Lucky Orange, or if you're not a user yet, head over to luckyorange.com. Check it out. 7-day free trial with no credit card required. If you're a Shopify store owner, head over to the Shopify App Store to download the Lucky Orange app to your store today, as well as BigCommerce, HubSpot, Square, and many more. Check us out. Happy optimizing.